And I actually think it's wrong what Cotto did because now it's like, okay, all right. The WBC allowed Cotto to fight Sergio Martinez for the title at 160 pounds when Miguel Cotto wasn't even ranked by the WBC or a active 160 pounder at the time. He fought Daniel Geale as his voluntary a year later, 1 year later. And they said, okay, well, since you fought Daniel Geale, and then you're fighting Saul Canelo Alvarez, which he's fighting Alvarez November the 21st, 2015, you have to fight Gennady Golovkin, but you have to pay step-aside money. So Golovkin agreed Golovkin's team agreed that, okay, well, he can fight Canelo as long as the winner fight us, but they have to pay us money, and which is known in boxing. Like if you don't want to fight your mandatory, you got to pay step-aside money. Unless you're Floyd Mayweather, but that's a different story. So he's been stripped of his WBC title because he didn't want to pay the $300,000 sanctioning fee and the $800,000 step-aside money, which we already knew he was going to have to pay regardless. This is a known rule in boxing. You have to pay step-aside money. Now, what this shows me is that if Miguel Cotto would have won, he didn't want to be obligated to fight Gennady Golovkin. He does not want to fight Golovkin. So what happens is if Canelo win, okay, put it this way. Cotto is no longer the WBC champion at 160 pounds because he didn't pay the sanctioning fee. I don't know if he thought that he just was going to go into this fight as the champion and not pay the fee and maybe be stripped after, or it looks like to me he just knew that after this fight he wasn't going to be the champion anymore, whether Canelo wins or not. He just knew that he didn't want no parts of the 155-pound division. It's going to be interesting to see what he weighs in at. I'm thinking he's going to weigh in at like 153.5 or something like that because he wants to show, just like he did in his last fight against Daniel Geale when he weighed in, and as he talked to Max Kellerman at the end, that he's not a real middleweight. And I'm thinking, like, why did you hold up the most prestigious belt in the middleweight division? So if Cotto wins against Canelo, then Cotto won't have the title anymore. Gennady Golovkin will be elevated to full champion at 160 pounds, which making him the WBC, IBF, and the WBA Super World Champion at 160, and all he'll have to do is collect the IBF belt. But it's a shame because, I'm thinking there are fights out there for Miguel Cotto to get. People keep talking of a Floyd Mayweather rematch. We don't even know if Rock Nation can work with Al Heyman, who advises Floyd Mayweather. We don't know if they can put this fight together. And I'm thinking I would like to see a rematch. And if it was next, the rematch would only be for the WBA Super World at 154 because the WBC stripped Floyd of the, well, not stripped. They basically said you can't hold the belt hostage, and they made him emeritus status. So even though Floyd may have wanted to hold on to the full championship, they gave him a promotion and dibs at whoever the 154-pound champion is by the WBC if he decides to return to fight for that belt. But I'm thinking, like, if Cotto wins, what does if it's not going to be for the 160 title, what does a Floyd Mayweather versus Miguel Cotto rematch really mean? Like, what does it bring to the sport of boxing? Outside of us seeing a bigger Cotto, maybe having a slightly better chance, I guess, with Freddie Roach to beating Floyd Mayweather. I don't think he will in a rematch, but it's just shenanigans to me because I'm thinking, well, we all knew he didn't want to fight Golovkin in the first place. And then you're not going to pay that man his step-aside money? He's fighting. Listen, he didn't fight for a year. Now, when you have to fight your voluntary, within so you have to fight. Basically, you can't fight with the WBC and not defend your title within a year unless you're Floyd Mayweather. But he fought Sergio Martinez in June, won the title, fought his voluntary a year later. So Golovkin had won the WBC interim in October of, 2014. Cotto fought Daniel Geale in June of this year. So then you're fighting Canelo when realistically it's a shame. He should have been fighting Cotto for the WBC at 160 instead of Canelo, but Cotto found the way to maneuver, you know, to be able to get the Canelo fight, even though he knew, it's like he almost knew he was going to vacate the belt regardless. But just to be stripped like that by not paying the sanctioning fees and then try to not, you know, like pay that man for stepping aside. And it's like, I'm not fully taking up for GGG, but all I'm saying is when it comes to paying you're supposed to pay step aside money. So basically, it looks like he just held the belt. I mean, he held it for hostage. You know, because somewhere along the line, his team, Cotto's team, had to tell Golovkin, all right, well, we ain't going to fight you next, but we'll pay you some step-aside money. And then now it's like, no, we're not paying him. It's crazy. That's gangster. But I'm T-Street Controversy. This is T-Street Controversy Live. It is fight week. I got a couple of more Cotto versus Canelo videos coming before we actually get to the fight. And I'm hyped, man. I'm hyped. You know, it hasn't really hit me yet, but I really feel I'm going to be hyped as like the week goes on, because this is going to be a crazy ass fight. You know, if Cotto wins, then where does Canelo go? If Canelo wins, then Cotto is going to be like losing all his major fights. And then it's like, do they have a rematch? But then if they can't have a rematch if Canelo wins, because Canelo's going to have to fight Golovkin. It's just a crazy, crazy situation. You know, but I'm T-Street Controversy. This is T-Street Controversy Live. I cover every single major fight live. Please subscribe.